the attrition forces of attrition working in the Capital Chemist Group. I nearly made it to a decade. They give you a slightly more official looking staff name badge after 10 years. I think I was a month off hitting the 10 years. Actually, we've been slight few more months because of trial contract I did in different kind of genre of pharmacy. But the Religious Discrimination Act in our Constitution, in our Rights Act, it's there for reasons that so here's a dilemma. Do businesses that go, well, we're private sector, we're not government, mean that they are saying such acts do not apply? So verbally there's sex discrimination, for instance, during a work shift from employers, and the imposition of their religion. But if you imagine the old game Guess What, where they kind of, you're trying to interpret them on an implicit level, and you're trapped. Trapped is a correct word for it, but it's also, they're saying, prove yourself to us, and then we will, once we're convinced, you'll be offered a work, paperwork to fill in so that you're an official worker. Now, what kind of trial-based system goes for 9 years, and that means that you're verbally, you're relying on a lot of informal trusts, and my privacy was very important to me, and I'd made the owner aware of this. Being a Freemason, his secrecy is more important to him than his word to me pertaining to the assertion that he would respect my privacy outside of the business and work hours. So Loney does this profiling. His favorite game, he took the staff out one year to a conference and to play a game of how to host a murder. Now, I'm not to suggest that he I don't think he what I think he'll host or know he can host is the apparency of a dissociative episode, so to speak, because that catalyzes a chain of events where a person is then marked for study at various times from various people, with a view to antipsychotic medicating and diagnoses. And it's what I find horrid about the religious scientists in the present day is like their religion, whatever logistics they had to comprehend to get their degrees, once turned on toward the claims of their religion, leads them to the debunking of their religion. But they aren't prepared to do that. Or you'll know from the way they talk to you that this is secular, and so through the way that they try and make a patient of that kind, it's like they want to build the God that they believed in that doesn't exist, so they can have both the faith and the like the theology, not debunk it, but instead build that which, or it's that some approximation, and it ends up being mad scientist freak show. Yeah, I mean, I know that psychological medication cost me my childhood, very young age, and was a contributing factor to my blood parents separating. So sort of morbid panic anxiety from religion, which, yeah, I find it's you could take any of the monotheisms really, and all the teachings concerning women. Yeah, well, you don't have to go as on the same tangents as Germaine Greer. I agree with Christopher Hitchens. He talks about poverty-stricken countries, and he says that the cure to poverty there is the empowerment of women and giving women control over their reproduction. This severage of, for as Christ is the head of the church, so is the husband the head of the wife. And women must remain silent in the church. St. Paul said to have has written in the New Testament. If a woman has a question, she must not speak, but reserve her question and ask it of her husband when at home, for it is disgraceful that a woman should speak in the church. That's stated too in the writings of Paul in the New Testament. So, I gave my commentary on Genesis. That's where I think a poisonous curse ideology that was misogynistic and domineering and possessive of women began. And in a way in which the woman is debased as well. She's stupid because she was so tempted to eating an apple. And because of her, everyone's born into sin now. And unless they comprehend the murder of Jesus as a gift to them. So yes, once again, I like Jesus on my own terms. I can quantify them in terms of biblical metaphysics, criticism, gospel datings, known quite well, but both to scholars that are still theists as well as atheistic counterparts. So, yeah, one woman I think is amazing, is a survivor of mistreatment under Islam, named Ayaan and I just think her insight is brilliant. Although what she said has been so controversial as to make it unsafe for her to go anywhere in public without the accompaniment of 2 bodyguards. So I must tip my hat and say what a woman with guts and a spine and how well spoken. And even in debates, she won't invoke the reference to, the absurdity that she needs these bodyguards as often as she does. Instead, she'll be contending with the points of the other panel and. Yeah, because the debate I was watching was called "Is Islam a Religion of Peace?" and essentially they tried the side arguing that no, it isn't. It was comprised of Ayaan Hirsi Ali teaming up with Douglas Murray, and now Murray was brilliant in pointing out a few things, like if. So they'll pick. Granted that historical context is necessary for things like accurate interpretation of what was meant by scripture in holy books. I don't think, particularly when you have holy books for a religion that are instructing to kill everyone in the city, but men, women, and children. But if you find a virgin, and keep her alive for yourselves. Um, uh, a verse like that in the Bible, I think, is disgraceful. So uh, yeah, no, but these all three of these monotheisms, you notice it. They it's like I wouldn't be surprised if the pioneers of these of the three Abrahamic religions positing this male god, because those powerful enough to get these stories started had taboo homoerotic moments with another male, and then uh, positing this three this triune god is like the concealment and the something like that wouldn't surprise me, because uh, why do they not invent like a female god on the bus to the south side where I grew up? There are near Red Rooster, though I still see the tradition has been upheld. It's where it's known as Red Rooter. If you take the S off the roof, which some friends did for me when I was in school, then at night time they turn on the signage and it lights up and says Red Rooter instead of Red Rooster. And even staff that work there prefer it that way. Oh. Yeah, but what stopgap or checks or policies are in place in private sector jobs like community pharmacy to guarantee to a person that the religion of the managers, who are the ones that are to decide that once you've proved yourself, you'll be offered, though you work full time, many weeks into the Saturday morning as well, after having DJ'd the Friday night previous and then having to DJ again the Saturday night after. Getting told I was the most versatile member of the team, fixing network issues with computers, and you know, there was no point whereby I hadn't proved myself enough to warrant being offered to. So then I would know what my workers' rights were, and then I would know that the checking method of the owners of the company wasn't trying to reconvert me to yeah. Um, So yeah, it's hard because I've said things and I've said certain things on my channel, and if a manager just will call me a poof during a shift, you know, um, when I've said nothing to them to evoke speech like that, um, you want to leave. They My baptism at Marilyn Manson concert, Canberra Royal Theatre, in 2003 inspired me to branch off into doing more DJ work by myself. I had an end goal of wanting to sing, but you know, in fact, that's why Marilyn said he started out wearing cosmetics, was because it helped him to have overcome stage fright. Oh, I'm getting a bit tired. Yeah. Yeah, I guess I'll leave it at that for now. It is very fortunate to know who's been a good friend to you. That sort of thing is hard to find and much appreciated by me here in Canberra. Certain heinous favor for danger, imposing danger. It was like a bikie came into a club where I was the resident DJ, and he had his jacket on, and he came up and asked the owner to tell me to change the song or something. Whatever the outcome of that conversation was, he walked over rather angry and just turned to tip his schooner over the top of the mixing desk, which would have killed all the circuitry. Now, yeah, I don't think that the theory that they can say if you want so trying to interpret truths in scriptures, you're often pointed to considerations based on historical contexts. but saying then, as Majid Nawaz had argued, was that Islam is a religion of peace, but that was essentially hijacked by European activity in World War One, resulting in Muslims sort of becoming more proactively violent. But the thing is, so long as these injunctions are in their texts, if you want to ask if this or that religion is a religion of peace, the same would apply to Judaism and Islam, and Christianity. I mean, you know, yeah, you can't point to things and say, though there's been a reformation, or though there's, those witch hunts, heresy hunts were hundreds of years ago. The way in which they move to defend this conversational pressure against the religious right is, yeah, what have you not noticed that what we don't see getting discussed much on the news is how and why a person thinking they are hearing and carrying out the will of a god, a supernatural theistic god, with superpowers that defy the laws of physics as we now know them. I think, Benjamin Franklin said lighthouses are more useful than churches, and John Adams said Christianity is the most perverted system ever engineered by the minds of men. Yeah, so I don't get why they weren't making their god to be a woman. Unless it was feared at the time that would be too taboo. But I still think it was too early. It's only been in the last 200 years, which incidentally is 200 years after the creation of the Freemason Church, incidentally. So, see, when this owner Roger goes to make what he calls a martyr, and which is to say, like, to represent or host a scene where you're so because he's got loyals with many a club guard, dispatch a friend, and so after having your house robbed, items from the property taken, and my guess was that they would dump those items somewhere. And I was trying to think of where they might do it while factoring in things like their secrecy. they don't feel like, despite their secrecy, they're not getting the proper credit in the press or capital chemist commercials and yeah, there really also can't be a genuine claim that Freemasonry is comprised of, for one, they don't put forward their theory of how it is they manage to unite all the world's religions. And if you've got 30,000 denominations of Christianity in the world today, how do you think those denominations formed were it not for gatherings, councils, discussions, and debates about what it takes to be a true Christian and what the correct and proper understanding of Christianity is, resulting in non-mutually agreed conclusions at the ends of the debates, then spawning off offshoots and new denominations. So when you actually try to unify these incoherent monotheistic religions, what they wind up doing is producing more denominations. So what I'm trying to say to you is that Freemasons saying that they've actually done this and their religion is about this, this so-called unification of the world's religions is actually, they might as well say we're concealing secretive I'm not gonna slam them, the whole lot of them as a group, but it's what they're saying. They're secret. It's also implying things like they're like overseers of all the other religions, and just as a preacher in a Christian church might consider the congregation members his flock and himself the shepherd, then they look at all the world's religions in a similar vein. But Freemasonry is the Freemasons are the ones to manage and shuffle them around, and but then their statements about this, what they're about metaphysically, is now the proof that they will be using tricks, because what they've said they're about in terms of their religion is a lie. So it's tricks that they'll resort to. I know two businessmen with quite a lot of influence in Canberra, and I knew pharmacists. Locums don't buy or own a particular shop. They'll move around when needed, and they don't have to contend with the bureaucracy of the gross net profit of the other shops in the company are much higher than yours. You need to do better this year. Saying things like that. You put a shop in a particular suburb to cater to the demand or needs in that suburb. So such attrition in the bureaucracy is wrong, but faithful theologians with on a power kicks will talk in such a fashion, think in such a fashion. So yeah, the two owners ruined the experience of Um, I'm not. I'm no. I consider the job a mistake, and when I felt finally the brief glimpse of freedom for the times in the last decade where I DJ on weekends or at private functions. I watched as the experience would improve my physical health so much. It's brilliant, really great time. Ironic in the sense that it was like therapy from my job. But you see, if your boss has said to you, you haven't, we're not gonna, you're working full-time hours, but we won't have you sign a employee contract, and so you need to prove yourself to us in order to earn one. And in the meantime they're calling you a poof. This was before I started to wear cosmetics. It was like my way of going, well, fuck them, let's see if they back off now, because I'd turn up to staff meetings dressed in quite extreme cosmetic looks, and that was my invitation for them to rethink themselves and justify themselves. But because this is all part of what I've learned and realized about these Freemasons, is that they're so secret that they've even hidden themselves away from things like modifying like transcendence is a spiritual important, it's such an important experience, transcendence, and they'll be denying themselves that experience through their secrecy and not changing. Therefore, Roger's basis scripturally for how he knows to identify a martyr, it's actually the combined four gospels on Jesus Christ. Three of them known to be written by two of them written by people that had copies of Mark as they wrote them, and then John's, which is very out there. But they truly, who are they to say that these are sufficient texts for them to identify martyrs now and then say, well, so this one must be a martyr, let's put them in the psych ward. Who are they to do that using the Christians' Gospels as their source inspiration, when there are stories of walking on water and turning water into wine? And I find that incredible. Instead of earning psych degrees or criminal or dangerous mind profiling qualifications, they use their secrecy and the Gospels. Yeah, I just think it's pathetic. That's me. Out.